Hello from world-famous Brooks Falls in Katmai National Park. My name is Mike Fitz and I'm a park ranger here at Katmai National Park. I'm about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, on the Alaska Peninsula. And this is one of the most famous wildlife gathering places on Earth that you're looking at. Bears come to this waterfall during the month of July to feast on the run of sockeye salmon that's trying to migrate through. There's a lot of competition for space here. There's a lot of things happening this evening, and so I'm so glad that you can join me. And this is also, of course, the centennial year of the National Park Service. So there's a lot of things going on. Very exciting time to be here at Brooks Falls. And I'd like to thank everybody behind the scenes at explore.org who make this webcam a reality, so I can share it with everyone, share this place with everyone all over the world. On the broadcast this evening, and I'll be here with you for at least an hour, I'll be narrating just the bear and salmon activity that we happen to see, and maybe anything else that's interesting related to the ecology of the area or the natural history. We never really know what we're going to see. I won't be checking the comments on explore.org if you're watching there, or on Facebook if you're watching on Facebook Live, but I hope to do my best to answer a lot of the common questions that you might have about this place and about the bears and the fish. And this is certainly the busiest night that I've seen up here at Brooks Falls so far. Downstream of me, I see 4 bears. And then at the waterfall itself, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 if you include cubs within 15 bears here within my line of sight, including those 2 cubs that are standing on the top of the waterfall watching their mom fish. There's a lot of different stories I think we can focus on this evening, so maybe we'll get started with the mom and cubs. So this is a female, an experienced mother. She's had at least 4 litters that I know of. This may be her 5th. I'd have to double check the records. This is number 402. And we recognize her. She's been around for a long, long time. She's been here at Brooks River for over 10 years. She's in her late teens right now. We recognize her by sort of the sloped profile that she has to her face. Her coat color overall just very brown. She's one of the few bears that fishes the lip of the falls, even though that might be the most photographed location at Brooks Falls here. That is not necessarily the best place to fish, because when salmon aren't jumping, that's a kind of a terrible spot to be. But 402 is a very experienced bear on top of that waterfall. She knows how to do it. She knows how to catch fish very well when they are jumping. And she caught one just before we started the broadcast. Her cubs are in their 2nd summer. They're hungry. And of course, they want to eat fish that mom catches, but she isn't going to bring fish back to them. She's probably going to try to eat as much of that fish and keep it to herself. These cubs are nursing still at their age. They're only in their 2nd summer. So not only are they here for hunger, but also, there's lessons that are being taught by mother bears. And of course, we don't really know in the future what will happen to these cubs, but perhaps, these cubs that you see right now could be fishing the lip of the falls in just a few years. A lot of times mother bears with cubs will avoid Brooks Falls because of the close proximity of all of these other bears. It can be a dangerous place to be for bear cubs, and I did watch actually 402 and another bear here get into a short fight, essentially, and the one cub from 402, and this was in 2011, was separated during that, and that cub was killed by an adult male. So the risk for being here can be fairly high, but the reward also can be extremely high as well. This is the best place to fish along the river. Downstream of Brooks Falls, the salmon have a lot of places to escape if a bear is running through the river trying to catch them. So this can be a risky spot to be but this mother bear sees that the risk is worth the reward. Catching those 2 fish, and look how fast she's consuming that. And that cub definitely wants a piece, but he can't quite get there. I mean, that water is strong. If I was standing there, I'd be afraid of actually falling off. Mother bears really don't bring food to their cubs. The cubs have to just tear it away if she's tolerant of that. And it looks like, 402 is not going to move to a position where she's going to share that food with her cubs. Each one of these salmon contains about 4,500 calories. So in, again, just less than 5 minutes, she's taken in about 9,000 calories. During the course of the day, if there's a lot of fish in the river, they can eat 20 to 30 fish, really without any issues. So it's not uncommon when there's a lot of salmon in the river for bears to be eating 100,000 calories or more during a day. There's less fish here right now, and that's probably why we're seeing so many bears. Last night, if you tuned into this broadcast, you would have seen a lot of fish and much fewer bears. When there's not a lot of salmon in the water, the bears have to stick around to try to get their fill. And I think that's the reason that explains this concentration that we're seeing here this evening versus last night when there were 150, 200 salmon jumping a minute and very few bears at the waterfall from 6 to 8 p.m. Alaska time. One bear that I want to highlight before it walks away is an interesting character here. A bear that we never saw at Brooks Falls until last year. He was a bear that we saw in the fall, and when in September and October, bears at Brooks River fish the downstream of Brooks Falls because they're feeding for dead and dying salmon. The salmon are no longer migrating, so the waterfall is no longer a good place to fish in many years. And this bear was known to use the mouth of the river in the fall, but we never documented him in this at the waterfall in July until last year. This is number 775. He's nicknamed Lefty because he has that short left ear. He's an adult male. You can see he is he's not a small bear, but he's not really thick-bodied like some of the real dominant males that we have here. And he's actually pinched in between several adult males. So there's one big boy in the plunge pool near the waterfall right now. 775 is avoiding the approach of number 856, the most dominant bear on the river. We can recognize him just by his overall size. He's a really big guy, blondish ears. His disposition gives him away in a lot of instances because he walks through the river in a very sort of confident manner. He knows that virtually all other bears here will avoid him. So he rarely acknowledges sort of the presence of other bears unless he's trying to displace them from a food resource. Or in this case of this evening, a female bear that he might have the opportunity to mate with or want the opportunity to mate with. So getting back to 775 Lefty here, he's real easy to recognize. He has that short left ear. Has some scars on him, but they're not super distinctive. He will also steal fish. A lot of our bears around here, we see from year to year, and they can certainly change their behavior depending on certain conditions. Bears have the ability. Well, I guess it could be described as a behavioral plasticity. They can change their behavior to sort of fit certain situations. Maybe 775 had not discovered Brooks Falls in the past. Maybe he did and we just didn't recognize him. He didn't always have that short left ear. The first photos we have of him when he was a younger bear his ears are symmetrical. So again, bears are very adaptable creatures. They have sometimes large home ranges. So this bear could have been finding, a way to make a living without visiting Brooks Falls in the past. Maybe that food source, wherever it happened to be, just dried up, so to speak. Or maybe he was just wandering through this area and finally got a whiff of salmon at Brooks Falls. Now he's back this year. Last year when he arrived, he looked very hungry. He was moving around the waterfall very frantically, chasing other bears, chasing fish, stealing fish from other bears, and he even leapt off the waterfall, or leapt off the waterfall a couple of times. And that was caught live on the webcams, and that was a pretty wild sight to see him standing on the lip of the waterfall and jumping right down into the jacuzzi trying to catch a fish. So we'll keep an eye on him for you. I'm going to be scanning throughout the night, looking around to see what else can catch my attention. Many bears still kind of moving downstream. Let's pan down that way just so we can get a glimpse of what's happening down there. 856 actually moved down into that area. And he's been following a female maybe for the past few days. This female bear that's on the right, sort of right center, was seen mating with another bear maybe around 5:30 or 6 o'clock tonight, when 856 wasn't sort of guarding his access to this female. And that's sort of the one of the challenges of being a big adult male is if you want to have the opportunity to mate with the female, you need to be following her nearly constantly until she is receptive to mating, because she may not, want you necessarily nearby. They're not always receptive to mating. Female bears go through a cycle of estrus. So maybe for a week or a few short days, they may be more receptive to mating than other times. The peak of the mating season here is June. Perhaps earlier tonight, 856 just left his guard down. He went to the waterfall to fish, and another adult male came over at just the right moment and started copulating with this female. Once 856, however, realized what was going on, he left his fishing spot right down there and broke up the party. So several bears in what we call the riffles area downstream. We talked about 402 on the lip, about some of the lessons maybe that cubs are learning how to fish here, watching other bears, watching them carefully, of course, and mother bears watching them carefully too for any threats. So there's risk involved up here. It's a challenging place to be. There's a lot of competition too, and that's one of the other things that you can take from watching these bears, is that they are competitors. The two bears that we see in the frame right now actually have competed with one another for several years. The wound that's on the back of the bear on the upper left, it actually is courtesy of the larger bear at lower right. So the bear on the upper left, pretty easy to recognize because he has a large open wound on his rump. He also has a healing wound on his left shoulder, and that's number 83. He's an adult male. The one closer to us is number 747. He's one of the more dominant bears on the river, maybe number 2 in dominance here. 856 is the most dominant bear. And I recognize 747 just based on his overall size. He's a monster bear. You watching on the webcam here, it's going to be kind of hard to get a good perspective on just how big this bear actually is. But he's a very large animal. Average weight for an adult male here in Katmai during midsummer, 700 to 900 pounds. He's pushing that upper weight limit. He has sort of peg-like ears, wide-set ears, cinnamon brown color. Lacks a lot of distinctive scars, but he also has, many small scars and wounds on him, and that's typical of adult males, especially at this time of the year when they're shedding their fur. They get their wounds and scars from competing with other bears. Sometimes fighting over a fishing spot, an animal carcass, sometimes fighting over females, or just to maintain their place in the bear hierarchy. And that's what happened with maybe 747 and number 83 at the top of your screen. 83 seemed like he just didn't see or smell 747 coming along. 747 wanted to teach him a lesson, remind him that he's a more dominant bear. And when you're a dominant animal, that confers a lot of advantages. It gives you access to the best fishing spots, gives you greater opportunities to mate with females. So adult males want to show other bears how big and bad they are. And again, bears aren't necessarily, I'm using the word bad sort of in the slang term, or the meaning of that word. But they definitely want to show how big they are, how strong they are. Because if they can remind bears of that, especially if it's just through posturing or other behaviors, then they can conserve energy in the future by not having to remind those bears that they are on top of the hierarchy. And 747 usually has access to the best fishing spots at the falls, unless 856 is here. And if you want to know more about, these individual bears, you're curious about to see more photos of them, what they looked like in the past, just go to Katmai's website. You can and look for the ebook section. You can also find a direct link to that page by scrolling down to just above the comments on explore.org. If you're watching the bear cam there, and you can find the link to the Bears of Brooks River ebook. You can download that, and that's the most comprehensive guide to the life history of all of these bears that we see here. Competition, challenge, growth, learning. We've been talking about those things this evening. A little bit, and we'll take a break from the bears at the falls. Look downstream quickly, because our so-called courting pair is coming back. The female is moving, to the left side of your screen, standing on the rock right now. The adult male, that big 856, most dominant bear on the river, is standing downstream of her. And again, courting is a process where the male tries to habituate the female to his presence. For the rest of the year, he's really a threat to her. It's a big dominant bear, can obviously inflict a lot of punishment on her if he happened to attack her. So, bears are very wary of one another. When you see this giant bear that's maybe, a third larger or more larger than you want to keep your distance. So it does take a long time, and in many cases, for the female to get used to the presence of the adult male before she gives him the opportunity to mate. And this is fairly typical courting behavior. The male just following the female incessantly. And I want to turn back to the waterfall real quick. Again, there's a lot happening tonight. 402 caught another fish, and that cub was able to take a little bit of fish away from her. It looks like almost half of that. So we'll watch this. Again, these are fairly large fish, 4 to 7 pounds on average. Its sibling, though, maybe is just a little too unsure of if it can hold its ground on against the force of that water. So it's sitting on the bank there. And siblings don't share food either. There's a lot of competition within the litter. There's competition for mother's milk. Doesn't seem like all of the teats on a female bear will produce milk at the same rate. Oh, and this should be interesting. I thought maybe 775, the bear closest to me here, might walk up and try to steal that fish from that cub, but it looks like he's going to try to maybe avoid that. So maybe that bear, that cub on the waterfall eating the fish, being just a little bit more aggressive feeling, having the confidence to go out into the water, might grow just a little bit faster than its sibling. And that certainly can give it a competitive advantage when it is weaned. It might be just a little bit larger, a little bit more skilled at catching fish. And these cubs, again, are in their second summer. They're what we call yearling cubs. This may be their last summer with this female. And if you're just tuning in, my name is Mike Fitz. I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. I'm on the Alaska Peninsula, about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage. And I'm standing on a wildlife viewing platform, an elevated platform about 10 feet off of the ground at world-famous Brooks Falls. If you've ever seen a photograph of a bear catching a salmon in its mouth, it probably was taken right here. And it could have been this bear that we're watching. She's been standing on the lip of the waterfall for over a decade. We have some bears here that we haven't seen at the waterfall very much this year. Like this adult male, this is number 634. He is nicknamed Popeye. Kind of got that nickname because he's big, furry forearms, especially when he was a younger bear, a subadult bear. Those are the immature bears that are between 2.5 and 5.5 years old or so. They're the teenagers of the bear world. And of course, he's a mature adult male right now. He doesn't quite have the furry forearms that he used to, but he still has very blonde ears, slightly upturned muzzle, a fairly prominent shoulder hump. And so he can be distinctive because of those features. He's not, at the top of the hierarchy. He's kind of mid-ranking for an adult male. Most bears don't attain the size of bears like 747 in the plunge pool or 856 who's moving downriver following that female. Most of them are, again, ranked just a little bit lower, like 634 Popeye right here. He will also steal fish. Occasionally you'll see that happen. Each one of these bears has a unique sort of suite of fishing techniques that they like to utilize. They'll all utilize sitting or standing and waiting. They're waiting for the fish to come to them. And that, you can see, was just that strategy has proven successful for 634 here. Downstream of the waterfall, they may try to run after the fish. That expends a lot more energy, but many bears can't compete with these really big adult males up at Brooks Falls for access to fishing spots, so they are often relegated to chasing fish downstream. But if you are big enough and strong enough to maintain your position at Brooks Falls, then you can afford to sit here and wait for the fish to come to you. Even though they're so large and the water is fairly cold, I'd be surprised right now if it was over 60 degrees Fahrenheit rapidly. They're fairly large animals, as you know. They also have a fairly high volume compared to their surface area. So there's just not a lot of exposed body mass. The larger an object is, the longer it takes to cool down or heat up. So bears can sit in the water for hours and really not suffer the same effects that I would if I was in the water without something like a wetsuit or a dry suit. Just after a few minutes in this cold water, I would start to shiver, and a few minutes after that, I might start to lose a lot of my energy. But bears are very large animals, so they're well adapted to handling this cold water. Some of the stories that you can follow here as well with these bears has to do with, well, how they grow. You can see that, you know, their story of growth and maturity. You can also see their stories of aging as well. And these two bears, I think, kind of give you examples of both of those stories. The one in the foreground is number 32. He's nicknamed Chunk. He has a kind of a big butt, and he's always had that since he was a young bear. When he was first identified, he might come to the waterfall, but he was always just hovering on the fringes. Wasn't able to compete with the real big males up at Brooks Falls. But now he's grown. He's maturing. I think he still has some room to grow. And we'll get back to his story in just a little bit, because I think we're gonna watch this. Looks like number 775 Lefty is going to try to steal the fish that an older adult female just caught, number 410. Or maybe he's going to get distracted, it seems like, by the school of fish that he's chasing downriver. And this is one of those things that, you know, when you're watching bears here at Brooks Falls, you see so much action going on. There's stuff going on upstream, going on downstream, right in front of you. It's really kind of a very fun place to watch wildlife and learn about all of their individual characteristics and their behaviors that allow them to successfully compete with one another and survive in a pretty harsh world. So I don't think he was able to catch any fish. Let's watch this just for another moment. We'll see if he wants to pursue number 410, who's over on the left side of your screen on the far bank eating a salmon. He may ignore her. Well, a lot of these more aggressive interactions between bears, fights for example, fish stealing, they're more likely to happen earlier in the salmon run than later in the salmon run, because food has been less available to the bears throughout the course of the spring and early summer. As everything, as the salmon run progresses and salmon disperse into different streams, then a lot of these more aggressive interactions will taper off. They'll know their place in the hierarchy. The interactions will be more based on avoidance than anything else. But it looks like 775 is approaching 410 here. Let's watch and see what happens. So it doesn't look like he's maybe he is. I don't know if you can hear that roaring. But he's trying to intimidate 410. 410 is at a little bit of a disadvantage because she can't bite to defend herself. She'd lose the fish. And again, he just kind of forced his way in there, roaring at her, a directed approach. And he's a hungry bear. You can see how fast he's eating that, whatever was left of that fish. So 410 catches another fish this evening. Then this bear, Lefty, he might try to steal that fish again. Bears are quick learners. If they learn that one fishing strategy is successful, they're going to try it again. And before we watch that steal, that pirating that went on, which is a legitimate fishing strategy for bears, We were talking about number 32 Chunk, the bear in the foreground of your view right now. Again, he was a bear that was first identified about 10 years ago or so, 9 years ago. And he couldn't compete with these really big males up at Brooks Falls, but he can now. So his story is one of growth and maturity. I'm curious to see just how dominant he gets in the future. He could become a very dominant bear. He could just, become one of those mid-ranking adult males that doesn't really reach the pinnacle of the hierarchy. The one behind him, though, kind of shows a story of, aging. When I first started working here several years ago, the one in the background, number 480 Otis, he has a floppy left ear, scar on his forehead, fairly blonde in color. That bear was, a fairly dominant bear. He had his choice of fishing spots in the far pool or in the jacuzzi, but now he is more likely to be displaced from the jacuzzi by some of those really big bears. He's also missing a couple of canine teeth. His molars appear to be worn down, and that's a fairly typical ailment of a lot of older bears. And that might be the thing that really leads to their demise is, kind of a lack of teeth in a sense. If we get a chance to watch him eat a salmon, we'll try to tune into that, because he definitely has a harder time biting through the fish anymore, stripping the skin off of the fish like a lot of other bears can do with great dexterity, because he's lacking a lot of teeth. So with both of these bears, we see, stories of growth. We see stories of aging too, but kind of a contrast in between the two. A up-and-coming adult male, and then an aging bear that's maybe slipping down the hierarchy as the years pass. So we'll watch 410, her yearling cub, on the 402 and her yearling cub on the lip of the waterfall. Her second cub is sitting on the bank just out of the view of the cam. Down below her is number 856, the most dominant bear on the river. Before we started the broadcast, I saw him catch and eat 6 fish. We can kind of keep tabs on that, just how many fish will he catch in the hour. We have some other bears on the far side that I haven't introduced yet. We haven't really been seeing this bear interact with a lot of others. He kind of hangs to the far wall. This is number 755. Nicknamed him Scaredy Bear. Not because he's necessarily scared of other bears right now, but he used to be. He used to run from other bears when he was a younger bear, and that's, again, kind of a common behavior, but he didn't seem to really have the tolerance level for the close proximity of larger bears that some of the younger bears of his same age had. He also ran at the sight of people, and even today he doesn't approach the wildlife viewing platform that I'm standing on when large groups of people are present. And right now there's probably 30 people on the wildlife viewing platform with me, so I would be shocked if he came to the side of the river. Many bears get used to the presence of people. They become habituated to our presence, but some of them just don't. And that's why the wildlife viewing platform that I'm standing on is closed from June 15th to August 15th, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that allows these bears that are not habituated to the presence of people the opportunity to fish at Brooks River without our disturbance. Anytime that you're going to a wildlife viewing area, you really want to think carefully about what you're going to do there, and if you can view bears or the other wildlife in an ethical manner that doesn't alter their behavior. So we're conceding the wildlife viewing platform in the evening to give these bears just a little bit of extra space. And that's part of the of course the mission of national parks is to protect wildlife and the ecology of the area, not just what we find easy to see or fun to do, but we also want to, sacrifice a little bit of our experience so we can, give the animals the space and the resources they need to survive. And 755, scaredy bear here is pretty good at fishing that far pool. And he's, you know, again, kind of in his mid-teens, maybe at the peak of his size and strength. So let's see where 856 is headed right now. Move it to the far side of the river. These real big dominant males, when they move through, bears just get out of their way typically. You can see number 83, that one with the rump wound, moving out of the way. We can see Lefty here with his short left ear, warily watching 856. So that's, you know, typical of the responses of other bears to these real big adult males, just avoidance. That's most of the interactions that I see that I note up here, just avoidance interactions. 747, just reminding them that number 32 on top of the waterfall there is not quite big enough to maintain that fishing spot near the rocks. It looks like 747 wanted it. In that situation, you know, that interaction could reverse itself in a few years. As number 32 gets bigger, maybe he'll get strong enough to challenge number 747. And if you're just tuning into the broadcast on explore.org or on explore.org's Facebook page, my name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a park ranger here at Katmai National Park and Preserve. And I'm coming to you live from Brooks Falls, world famous Brooks Falls, and I'm narrating the bear and salmon activity that we see this evening. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I'm not monitoring the comments on Facebook or Explore, but I'll do my best to try to answer a lot of the common questions that people might have about the activity that we're seeing here. It's been a really great night. The weather's fantastic. The lighting is very good. So I'll be here with you until at least 8 p.m. Alaska time. I'll probably stick around a little bit longer because it seems like there's going to be a lot to look at and talk about. And I'm on of course, a public wildlife viewing platform, so you may hear other voices. This is, you know, a very popular spot during the month of July. This is when we get the most people who come to visit Brooks Falls. If you're curious about visiting this place and you want to know more, you can find more information on Katmai's website, and that's nps.gov/KATM. One of the interesting things that we can watch on our webcams is over time, you know, again, the maturation and the growth of cubs. Sometimes we even get to see how their dispositions and, you know, sort of their personalities develop within the first couple years of their life. And this is a yearling cub. It belongs to the mother bear that's fishing the lip of the waterfall. At least one of these bears is, I think, is a male. The other one is probably a female, and I'm not sure which one we're looking at right now. Determining the sex of cubs is pretty difficult, just because, you know, you can't see any of the important parts that would tell you a male from a female bear at their age. Oh no! Oh, and number 402 just fell off the waterfall, and I missed it. looking at that cub. So that's the mother of the two cubs on top of the waterfall. You can see that you know, she's coming out pretty wet. She's going to go back to her cubs. She's jaw popping. That was a pretty stressful event for her. So those rocks are very slippery. I've been up on that waterfall, of course, when I'm allowed to do so and there aren't any bears here. You know, so sometimes in very early June, maybe like in the third week of August or something like that, when we have very few bears if any bears using the river. The pool of the water is very strong. The rocks are covered with algae, so you really have to know where to place your feet. And if you're the bears, when they're trying to fish for salmon on the lip of the waterfall, they often don't really shift their position very much because they know that it's very slippery. And 402 may be responding to the approach of 856, who again is still following that female number 289, small blondish, dark blonde female. So she's the one moving downriver. 856 is standing still at the island right now. And 856 may want that spot in the jacuzzi. 747, he's just moving right out of the way. 747 is a very dominant bear, but not as dominant as 856. And 402's decided, you know what, I'm going to take another chance, test my skill on top of the waterfall. And you can see she's virtually back in the exact same position that she was. But just one little slip means that she may get down into that plunge pool. Usually when that happens, I don't see the bear in the jacuzzi, attacking the one that fell in. Sometimes I've seen bears that when they fall off, like 402, they'll dive. They might feel fish in the water right there, and they'll dive underneath trying to get it. And diving is one of those techniques that we don't often see, but number 402 is one of the few bears that will try it. And both of her cubs right now are back on the edge of the waterfall. If you want to determine the sex of the cubs, you're watching the webcam in the future, watch them closely to pee. Because when they urinate, the females will pee out behind them, and a male bear will urinate straight down between its hind legs. So that might be the easiest way to determine the sex of these cubs. And these are number 402s. This is her 4th or 5th litter. You can find that specific information in the Bears of Brooks River ID book. Just look for the link on explore.org. Below the comments on the Bear Cam pages for the Bears of Brooks River ebook. You can download that for free. You can see most of these other bears are sitting and just being patient. And that's certainly a characteristic of virtually all bears. If they learn that a fishing strategy, for instance, is going to give them success if they sit and wait, then they're going to do that. And the bear that we're looking at right now, I don't often see her fishing that spot, and this is number 410. She's probably the oldest bear we have on the river right now. 28 years old, we believe. The average lifespan of a brown bear is about 20, but they can live much longer than that. The oldest brown bears documented on Brooks River here were over 30 years, believed to be over 30 years old when we last saw them. And I'm recognizing 410 based on her disc-shaped face, her coat color overall. She has a slight droopy lip as well. And you can see that number 83 is actually not trying to displace her. He will often fish in that spot. So he's the bear with the wound on his rump and the healing, or almost completely healed wound on his left shoulder. That's the spot that he likes to fish. And right now he probably just doesn't think, it's worth the effort to displace 410. If he was hungrier, I bet he might try to do that. But bears, again, change their behavior based on a lot of factors, not the least of which is just how hungry they are. An 856 who was in the plunge pool below us in that jacuzzi is now eating a fish. Let's take a look at that. This is, I think, number 7 for him in the past hour. There's a lot of scavenging, excuse me, a lot of scavenging gulls nearby. These gulls, can't catch and eat their own salmon, so they're waiting for other predators to give them the energy that and nutrients that salmon provide. He didn't leave very much, maybe just some entrails. And the gulls are going to quickly swoop in and try to consume that as quickly as they can. Looks like 856 is moving downstream. We've been watching him periodically tonight follow a female bear that maybe he wants the opportunity to mate with. There's 3 bears downstream. As he approaches, they'll probably all react a little bit differently, maybe just avoid him. The female that he's courting might, kind of be getting used to him, so she might go about her business as she normally would. The bear on the upper left is a young adult male, youngish. He's almost, 10 years old this year. That's number 89 backpack. Raised as a cub here. And he's actually standing fairly close to his mother. And they're just ignoring each other. His mother is number 435 Holly. She's a pretty blonde bear. She gets very fat in the fall. So she's kind of at upper right. And then 856 is at center right. You can see the difference in size between these animals. Even though the blonder bears are standing further downstream, you can still see that 856 is much, much larger than them. People do ask, well, what happens when a mother bear encounters her, her grown offspring? And well, this is one example I can give you. A lot of times they just ignore one another. Sometimes they don't share a home range, though. Subadult bears, male bears especially, will disperse out of their home range. And maybe, their mother's home range, and maybe establish their own far away. But they do, recognize places with a lot of great food resources that mom takes them to, so they could come back to those spots and share a little bit of the same home range as mother. When number 89, who's on the left, was younger, I had seen 435 Holly, his mother, chase him away in interaction that I sort of interpreted as, just stay away from me, kid. I raised you, now it's time for you to go do your own thing. But right now, he's bigger than mom. And I doubt that she needs to really remind him. How tolerant they're going to be of one another in the future, I can't say. 435 is a fairly tolerant bear towards others. She doesn't usually mind the close proximity of other bears. Unless they seem to be, threatening her or her cubs, of course. And it looks like, she's moving out of the way. Maybe fishing just isn't quite good enough in the riffles right now. Maybe there were too many other bears around. You can see 856 still following number 289. He's expending a lot of energy following that female, but he has to. He has to take advantage of the place he's at in the bear hierarchy, because in a few years there could be a younger, stronger bear that pushes him out of the way. Different bears now are taking their turn in the jacuzzi in the absence of 856. So number 83 is in the jacuzzi right now. 747 was close to it, not quite fishing in it, and that left that vacancy open for 83. 747 is the one eating the fish at the top of the view. The catch rate away from the jacuzzi is sometimes a lot less than in the jacuzzi. And that's one reason, probably, maybe the main reason why the most dominant male bears like to fish in that location. If there's no fish jumping the waterfall, often there's fish, swirling around in that plunge pool. On the far side, on many occasions, there's not a lot of fish over there either, but there's sometimes, fish hanging out in that jacuzzi. 856 coming back right now. You can see number 83 just getting out of the way. Even 402 right now reacting a little bit to the approach of 856. We can take a look at number 83's wound on his rump. It actually looks a lot better than it did just last week. It's still pretty raw and open, but certainly healing. Bears are remarkably tough animals. They seem to be able to heal from really egregious injuries that would put people in the hospital or maybe kill us outright from infection. And of course, they don't really have a choice. They get injured, they have to go about their business, the business of survival, that is. And that was just exactly what number 83 was doing after he received that wound. Well, I'll be watching periodically for more bears to walk closer to us so we can get a nice close-up view of them. And number 402 just got another fish. You can see that one cub that's, able to know how to stand against the current, trying to lean over as much as possible, trying to get a little bit of scrap from mom, and she's not sharing. She's eating those fish maybe just as quickly now as when she first started fishing the lip when we started the broadcast. And I think this is maybe her 5th or 6th fish during that time. I haven't shown all of those catches to you, but she's been catching them with some regularity. Again, mother bears don't really take fish to their offspring. Their offspring have to get fish from mom. Usually the mother bear is tolerant enough of them pulling away scraps, but sometimes not. These cubs will still be nursing too. This is at an age where they're going to be nursing, but they'll become less and less dependent on mother's milk as they age. And by the end of this summer, they'll be very much dependent on eating salmon and less dependent on her milk for nutrition. And it's almost 8 p.m. Alaska time. There's a lot of activity going on right now, so I'm going to stay with you for 15 or 20 more minutes. If you tuned in late, my name is Mike Fitz. I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. And I'm coming to you live from world-famous Brooks Falls. Katmai National Park is a large national park. It's about 4 million acres in size. And I'm about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, at the top of the Alaska Peninsula and just due west of Kodiak Island. You can see that she wanted her cub just to back off a little bit. Mother bears sometimes can discipline their cubs somewhat harshly. And I'm not sure if that was just because she wanted him to stop, or that cub, I don't know if it's a him or a her, to stop bothering her. When she's trying to eat a fish, she was saying, stay away. You're in a dangerous spot. There's a lot of other bears around. Many of these behaviors, we're not going to really know the motivation of these animals. This phenomenon that you're seeing right here with the bears and the salmon at Brooks Falls, this is something that happens for a few short weeks in July. But we'll have bears back here at Brooks River in September and October. So if you're just tuning into the bear cams for the first time, you want to know how long the bears are going to be here, you can watch bears here until things really start to freeze in October. There'll be salmon in the river, especially in spawning in September and October. In the month of August, however, there's salmon that are spawning in a lot of other streams in the area. So we have very few bears at Brooks River at that time, because the salmon that remain here have yet to spawn, and they're fairly dispersed at low densities, and that really creates difficult fishing conditions for bears. Bears are smart, they know that, they know where they can find easier places to fish, so they'll go to those other areas during the month of August, and we see a lot of bears come back here in September and October to feed on salmon. And now 747 here wants to fish that spot that Popeye, the bear that has his butt to us, was fishing at. And again, real dominant bear, 747. You can see, maybe see how his ears are forward. Popeye's ears are back, placed really tightly against his head in a defensive manner. 747 though is saying, you know, he's just slowly forcing 634 out, saying, are you going to challenge me? This is a spot that I want. I'm more dominant than you, and I think you should yield it to me. It's happening slowly. 634 Popeye doesn't really want to move, but 747 is a much bigger bear. And again, size means a lot to bears. 634 probably realizes that he's not going to be able to physically compete with 747, doesn't need to risk injuring himself for that fishing spot. So he just backed off a few feet. And again, 747 turning away from 634 just a little bit. And that's another sign of dominance. The dominant bear turning, sometimes turning his back, not acknowledging the bear anymore. 634 walking away because he had to yield that fishing spot. So one bear eating a fish at the waterfall right now. That's near the rocks. That's number 32. A maturing adult male, you know, over 10 years old right now, maybe approaching his early teens. And again, right now his story is one of sort of maturity and growth. The bear behind him, number 480 Otis, maybe the oldest adult male that we have here. He might be around 20 years of age. This is, you know, a story also of maturity. Certainly knows how to make a living, even though he can't, you know, compete with the most dominant bears in the river anymore for the best fishing spots. And then, of course, you know, our story of, you know, courtship, reproduction going on down here. 856 still following that female, number 289. She's, you know, not keen on him following everywhere, but bears have such a great sense of smell. And just say, well, I'm gonna lose him in this grass. He's not gonna be able to follow me. You know, bears have such a strong sense of smell that 856 is going to be able to recognize her scent and follow her very easily through the very thick vegetation here. And now he's going back to his preferred fishing spot in the jacuzzi. The bear walking near the island right now with the short left ear, very recognizable, an adult male that we just saw for the first time at Brooks Falls last year. Had only fished the river in September and October prior to that. He's stolen a fish tonight. Maybe he doesn't know how to fish a lot of these areas downstream of Brooks Falls. Maybe he thinks that stealing is going to be his best bet. Last year we did see him fishing on the lip of the falls, but that's occupied right now by number 402, who's caring for 2 yearling cubs sitting on the bank next to her. .856 has another fish. That's probably his 8th, I believe. Since I started watching him around 6:30 or so. So if he gets to 10 fish, that'll be 45,000 calories. Each one of those fish this time of the year, again, about 4,500 calories. And bears want to eat as many fish as they can right now to get sort of a head start on putting on weight before they go into hibernation. The salmon that they can get in the fall may be easier to catch because they've already spawned. Many of them have died, but they contain far fewer calories, maybe about half the number of calories that they do right now. So I see 13 adult bears here and 2 cubs. So there's a lot of bears around this evening. 856, you can see how skilled he is. He's had a lot of practice in the jacuzzi. That's an advantage of being a very big adult male. He just waltzed right in there, immediately caught another fish. He's been eating the whole fish too. He's not quite so full that he's starting to high grade yet, where he's eating the skin, the brain, and the eggs, the fattier parts of the fish. And I'm not sure at what point in time, a bear gets full enough that it's going to start to do that. Now, how many fish does it really take before a bear starts to only eat the fatty tissues off of it? And in a salmon, a lot of the fat is concentrated in the skin, in the brains, and especially the salmon eggs. Salmon eggs are nothing but fish oil practically, so they are extremely rich in calories. Far more so than the salmon flesh, and especially things like the entrails and the gill plates. Meanwhile, back at the waterfall, 747 was eating a fish, and he's maybe number 2 in the hierarchy here. He wants his fishing spot back. The oldest bear here that we know of, number 410, is in that fishing spot. So as he was trying to maybe get that fishing spot, the jacuzzi was left vacant. 856 went downstream, so 747 decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the jacuzzi instead of trying to displace 410. So he didn't necessarily yield that spot to 410. He just probably saw that there was a better place to fish. And then downstream, so much action going on tonight. 856 getting up in 775 lefty's face, challenging him. Now he's walking away from that interaction. Unless a bear is trying to, a male bear is trying to gain access to a female or a fishing spot, the dominant bear is going to be the one that walks away, turns his back on the other bear. You can see the bear on the left, the subordinate bear, just standing and watching 856 walk away. 856 not paying him very much attention at the moment. And 856 still keeping tabs on that female bear that's sitting on the rock that you can see kind of at the top of the frame. Far downstream, though, we have bears chasing after salmon. Moving in and out of my line of sight there. Again, those younger bears that can't compete with the really big bears for the best fishing spots up at Brooks Falls have to, make a living somewhere else. And downstream is often where they try to do it. Except in that area, salmon have a lot of places to swim away. It's not like the waterfall where you can, wait for a salmon to make a mistake, kind of get disoriented in the foam of the waterfall. Maybe they don't see you. Downstream, they can easily see predators approach. So bears in that area have to expend usually a lot more energy to successfully catch fish. All of these bears here have encountered one another before. This is not something new to them. Every bear that I see right now has been documented at Brooks Falls in past years. So bears, being so smart, they recognize each other from season to season, certainly from day to day. They don't have to reestablish the hierarchy on a daily basis. And that means they can avoid physical confrontations, as much as possible. We periodically see on number 402, the female bear, the mother bear. We periodically see her kind of turning around and looking back at her cubs, maybe just to check on them, see that they're still there, maybe giving them some reassurance that things are okay. Since, we witnessed her give the cub that's on the edge of the waterfall, kind of a little cuff. That one has not approached her as closely. So it seems to have gotten the message that maybe, it needed to stay back from the edge of the waterfall. But we do see here, her turning around, looking at her cubs. And mother bears have to spend a lot of time, in what you could call behaviors that are just, vigilant. If she was by herself, she wouldn't be looking behind her nearly as much. She could concentrate a lot more on just looking for salmon to jump towards her. So mother bears definitely face a lot of challenges. Protecting their offspring is a great challenge. And that means you have to keep tabs on your cubs. You have to watch for other bears to approach you and your family. And that equals less time and energy that you can spend towards gathering food and catching food. But she was paying attention that time. Caught that fish. She's been catching many fish this evening. And that cub's approaching. It's hungry. If you have a family at home and you're trying to feed children, you know how much kids can eat. Well, just imagine trying to feed the one bear cub that has approached mom a few times. The other one has never left sort of that edge of the river, standing over here. So the difference is, between cubs within a litter can be quite marked, even in their first summer. And these are cubs in their second year. Number 402 has another one. I regret now actually not keeping track of how many fish she has caught. It's been a lot. It's certainly well over 5. It's maybe closer to 10. And we didn't show all of those during the broadcast. And she's been, providing a tremendous amount of energy to these offspring over the past, few months after they have come out of the den. In the springtime, the cubs, they're gaining, most of their nourishment from her. You can see that cub reaching in, trying to get some scraps from mom. She's not, being cooperative. She needs those calories for herself just as much as she needs them to nurse her offspring. And it doesn't look like the cub was able to get any fish scraps that time. Number 410 here with the fish. She had one stolen earlier from the bear that's walking above her. It looks like maybe he's distracted by his own fish, and he did get some scraps that was drifting downstream. And that partial carcass was courtesy of bear 747, who's very, very well fed, very fat bear. So he's doing a little bit of that high grading tonight, not eating the whole carcass, just eating the more preferred parts of the fish. Let's take a look at number 410. She's a bear that's very tolerant of the presence of other bears. And that might be one reason why she can walk to Brooks Falls and not be displaced, from the falls completely. She's a big girl too, so that factors into it. But I think other bears sort of, have learned to recognize that she is not particularly aggressive around them, so maybe they can tolerate her close proximity. Downstream, that story of courtship still happening. 856, the real dominant bear here at Brooks Falls, sitting in the river looking downstream. The one on the rock is the female that he's been following, trying to get access to for the opportunity to mate. And that's number 289. Earlier in the day, though, she was mating, it looked like, with the bear that's walking into view right now, and that's number 89 Backpack, a younger male. So 856 wasn't quite able to guard, access to that female bear 100% of the time. He wasn't paying attention for a few moments, and sometimes with bears it is, almost love at first sight, so to speak. And they will mate after just encountering one another. But in many cases, there's a period of time where the female is not receptive to the advances of the male. And 856 is sort of, going through that process right now, just following her, waiting for the right moment. And a couple of other bears way downstream. Again, those are areas where less dominant bears tend to fish. Maybe females with cubs too. Just because they, don't really match up to the competition that you find at Brooks Falls. That area downstream, though, will become more and more important to bears in the fall as salmon spawn. That's an area that's heavily spawned by salmon. The river is almost dug up. The river bottom in that area is dug up almost completely each year by spawning salmon. So bears will use that area more frequently in September and October, looking for spawning salmon and the ones that are too weak to swim away, the ones that are already dying. And it's almost 20 after 8 p.m. Alaska time, and this is July 7th, 2016. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. I'm going to conclude the broadcast in just a moment. I'd like to thank everybody who joined me this evening from your home, wherever you're watching across the world. Look for other live broadcasts from rangers from time to time on our bear cams. I think the next one might be this Saturday with Ranger Dave and Ranger Daniel. I won't be joining them for that, but you can tune in and watch them. They'll have a very interesting topic to talk about related to bears and salmon here at Brooks River. And we'll be in the chat on explore.org too to try to answer your questions in that format. So please join the community. It's a great community. It's a community of animal lovers, bear lovers, national park supporters. And I'd like to thank everyone behind the scenes at explore.org who make these webcams a reality. It's so great to be able to share this with thousands of people who are watching right now. So please visit explore.org. If you're not watching there, please visit Katmai's website at nps.gov/KATM. And again, this is Ranger Mike at Katmai, and I will talk to you soon.